Welcome to episode 153 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today I'm speaking with Riana Malia, who is a transformational coach helping high-achieving women to break long-standing patterns in their lives in order to finally create the life and love truly meant for them. Riana's story is remarkable. She overcame early childhood instability, a painful young marriage, an extremely traumatic betrayal by her father, and years of internalized beliefs suggesting she wasn't lovable or capable enough to do anything meaningful. After all that, she rebuilt her life, rewired her inner story, and discovered a methodology that now helps others to do the same. Here are 3 key takeaways from our conversation. First, Riana explained why revisiting trauma over and over keeps us stuck in the same emotional loops. However, clearing out old stories at the unconscious level helps to create space for genuine healing. Second, she described how the body processes memory at a cellular level and why our unconscious mind plays a far greater role than we realize in shaping relationships, decisions, and the harmful patterns we repeat. Third, Riana shared why clarity, intention, and values are essential building blocks for new direction in life, especially for women who have achieved success professionally but still feel unfulfilled or disconnected personally. To tell us more about her inspirational story of healing and recovery, please welcome Riana Malia to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Riana. I really appreciate your time. Telling me that you have been focusing your attention on helping successful or high-achieving women to rewrite patterns in their life that seems to keep them stuck. What attracted you to that?
Oh my gosh. It's a story, right? We all have a story. Mine started as a young child. My parents had gotten divorced when I was 2. We moved to Minnesota. He went to California, had another family. Wasn't really present. I went off to college. He said, listen, I'm going to take care of your room and board. It was great. Got there, a couple months in, they called and said, hey, the bill wasn't paid. So I'm 18. I got to figure it out. Should I quit? What should I do? So I moved out of the dorm. I got 3 jobs. I rented a 5-bedroom house, filled the other 4 bedrooms, figured it out. Now, it wasn't exactly the college experience that our kids are getting right now, which I'm so grateful they're getting it. But I married really young, 22, 23. First thought for sure I was going to be the old cat lady. No one was ever going to love me because there was evidence of that. Just 10 out of 10. Don't recommend. Don't get married when you're still a baby. That's silly. My daughter's going to turn 22 next month, and I can't even imagine her being engaged. Anyway, I digress. So we got married. We were too young. You don't know who you are and who you aren't. For all intents and purposes, it was a pretty lonely marriage. We had our miracle child, Maddie. And then when she was 6, we separated, or we were starting the divorce process, and it felt like it was pretty calm. And then it turned crazy, like within 24 hours. So that was a very tumultuous, horrible time in my life. So when we're going through pain, and even when it's clear that it shouldn't be, like this relationship was not meant to continue, you still grieve for what you wanted for your life and your family, especially when there's children involved. So it's important to know that it's not either or, it's yes and. Yes, this is not right, and I'm still sad that it didn't work out. So like everyone, I did all the things I was told to do. I talked about it in therapy. I talked with my girlfriends. I read the books. I did the Brene Brown workshops on the weekend. Like, I did all the things, and while all of those things are beneficial, after a certain point, it just keeps you in the story. It doesn't move you forward. It's not really healing. It's actually re-traumatizing every single time you go back and tell the story and the drama and the pain, because we know now that memory is cellular. So we hold that in our body. So fast forward about 3 years, Maddie's 9. My dad I don't know if he was getting divorced again. Anyway, he had come to visit us. He was a little bit more active in our life after Maddie was born, but listen, it was springish. And he said, it's the perfect time. You guys should move to California and take over this family business. And I said, oh, that sounds so nice. But listen, number 1, I'm not doing this on a whim because I don't trust you. Number 2, my mom had just had a surgery and they nicked a nerve. They were doing something in her neck and she couldn't use her right arm, and she did nails for a living. So she was recovering. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to leave my mom. I'm not going to leave the horses. I'm only disrupting Maddie's life once. And this has to be the real deal. He's bring your mom, bring the horses. I'll have somebody get them. We'll build a barn. And everything inside of me was screaming, no. And it was like multiple billboards in Times Square. Do not do this. My two best friends who were like my chosen family. Don't do this. But I did. I ignored that intuition and I said, but I want this. I want Maddie to grow up in this like magical little town at the base of Mount Tam and be near the ocean because I'm an island girl, so we need to be by the beach. And a long story short, the first few months were that fairy tale. Family dinners and going up on the weekend to the lake where the horses were and getting to like really reimagine this very boutique, amazing business. And he was off doing his other things. And there was a pit in my stomach, but I couldn't place it. And I thought, maybe it's just because we don't know, we're here in this completely new place. We don't know anybody. And we're really just starting over and trying to figure it all out. About 6 months in, I was in the back and I remember hearing some voices and I looked around the corner and coming through the door were all these men, guns drawn, pointed at me, and I was put in handcuffs. Now, Maddie was supposed to be home in 20 minutes from school. My mom went to get her and a new little friend for the first time. Imagine. And I'm like, I need to call my mom. I don't know what's going on, but she can't come here. And they're like, you're not calling anyone. So they had been doing all this investigating and following people and whatever. And I was so proud because, I don't know if you remember this, 12 years ago, Sky Mall magazine on Delta Airlines.
Yes.
Do you remember? It was like before everything was online. And so I had gotten these beautiful hand-poured candle towers in Sky Mall magazine. So I was like thrilled. So another person did all of the other orders and shipping and all of that. And I took care of Sky Mall because I always wanted to write a personal note and stick it there. So they come in and they say, they had stopped the UPS guy. They had been coordinating with him. They pulled off the box that he had picked up from the studio, which was one that I had packed. And they said, did you pack this box? And I said, yes, I did. So they opened it. And there was nothing in there but the candles and my love note. So they said, all right, we're going to take it back to the UPS guy and your customers will still get it. And then they proceeded to tell me of all of these things, all these suspicions of drug activity and money stuff and all this stuff going on. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what am I going to do? And my dad was like on his way to South Dakota with girlfriend number 50 of the moment, like to take her home. And I just sat there and this went on for hours and hours. I had to stay there. And the thing was, as our house was right next door on the same little lot as the studio. And so Maddie and my mom, it was traumatic to say the least. So now, not without having to, this would be a 17-hour podcast if we went to all the details. But the end of the day, I'm now in a position where I don't have an income or business because they froze all the assets. They just stopped everything. This dream and desire of this family and this relationship with my father that I had wanted all my life, up in smoke. And now I had another decision to make. We could go back to Minnesota in a heartbeat and go back into our friends and our family and resettle in. Or I could keep my promise to my child. And I moved around a lot as a little girl. And it was hard. And it doesn't give you that sense of just being able to be a little girl and just without questioning and wondering. And you just get to relax and be little. So I decided that it was more important for me to break that generational lack of integrity of making promises that aren't kept. And we stay. And I think that oftentimes when we face things that we're like, I don't know how the heck I'm going to get through this or beyond it, we think it's that we don't have the resources. We don't have the time, the energy, the money, the support. But what I truly believe is that we're not tapping into our resourcefulness because we all have it. But it's like a muscle. You don't know it's there until you use it. So we stayed several $100,000 in debt later, but we stayed. And I had always been very much into personal development. And in Minnesota, I was coaching. I was also head of practice development for an oncology group. So in this moment of I literally have nothing and don't know what to do in this moment, I got my real estate license so that I could start working on something. And then I quickly transitioned after a few years into coaching realtors. But in the meantime, went back to therapy, right? And obviously was dealing with this massive betrayal. And I found myself just vacillating between either absolute rage or such deep sadness. And my heart was broken. But you can't be present, and there's no joy and there's no moving forward when you're just stuck in it. And so again, like writing the letters to my dad that I never sent because he's a narcissist and you can't feed the fire. But just going, I'm done with this. I don't want to talk with this anymore. I'm not moving forward at all. And then it was in that moment that I found something that then became the basis for my life's work, my methodology, my framework, my protocol. And that was great. And even in that just beginning, after a few weeks, there was parts of me that I barely recognized in all the best way. But because I hadn't done this work yet, I got into a relationship that was abusive. And I knew from the first moment it was not right for me. But I had so much evidence that I wasn't lovable. I wasn't enough. I'm like, what if nobody else? And so I let myself get into this relationship, and it took a long time to get out of it because it got very intertwined with a house split, whatever. But it was abusive in all the ways except for physical. But I've never been so depressed and sad and unhappy in my life in those year and a half or whatever it was. And then I was clear, like, I am done, and there has to be something else. And then I started deep dive and then I went all in for a few years of getting master trained in evolved neuro-linguistic programming, quantum time release, a master trained trauma conscious coach, and being a board certified neurosomatic practitioner, that I get to help people heal, move forward, and create the life and love that's meant for them without going back into the story and the pain that caused the trauma in the first place. And 4 days ago, I celebrated my 2-year wedding anniversary with the greatest love of my life, which I never thought would happen for me. But without this work, no way it would have.
I love the fact that you are taking people forward without having to go back into their pain.
Yeah.
That defies what they say you have to do. Is you have to go back to your younger self and address the hurt that was there, when all that does is keep you stuck there. It sounds so. Yours is a refreshing approach. Were you arrested, or did that problem just disappear?
It was a long thing. DA people showing up at my house, telling me they had been taking my garbage and watching me, and they knew you didn't have any knowledge of this or have anything to do with it. But we could still take your child if you don't tell us this. And it was so scary. I had to tell you, Greg, for years, anytime I heard a noise in the night, I was certain they were coming to get me. Because they had took sledgehammers to the side of my house to go under it, broke doors down to see if there was stuff hiding there, because my father used to live in that before we did. And so it was a lot of trauma. Now, I will say, no, I wasn't arrested. And I don't know how he wasn't either. But after a couple of years, it ended up being some other charges. It was in the newspaper, and then I had to deal with that and the shame and the embarrassment. At the end of the day, it was like, it wasn't mine to carry anymore. And I will say one thing, that I was so protective of Maddie, that she didn't know any of this happened until she went off to college 4 years ago.
Wow.
For her. She didn't know. Because, again, my own childhood stuff of being talked to about adult concerns and matters and having that weight, and you can't process that as a child, and you just worry and you try to figure out how to fix it. And I was so 100,000% like, my most important job is to protect her. And so it was pretty crazy when I actually told her the story, and she said, honestly, don't even know how. I didn't know, but thank you.
That is neat. It's a problem I think a lot of people face. Many kids grew up in single-parent homes as victims of divorce, and they moved frequently from home to home or community to community. I myself moved to 4 different communities in 5 years. And it's like it's hard to feel settled, hard to feel like you have any control at all in your life. And if you internalize that and take it forward into all the other things, you're right. You get into those relationships where I'm unlovable. This person is expressing interest. I must hold on to this person because nobody else will find me lovable. Yep. So you help people move forward from that. And you do this through one-on-one or group counseling?
It's all private. So the work that I do is it's intimate, and yes, I have a methodology and I have a a framework and there's a process, but it's different for every person. And the methodology is important to understand because my tagline has always been your very best life. Whether we have been friends for 40 years or we met yesterday, I want you to live your version of your very best life. It's different for every one of us, right? But the truth is you can't go from being held back by old story, past pain, old trauma, all the limiting beliefs and limiting decisions because of a failed marriage, failed business, a bankruptcy, whatever it is, all the stuff. You can't just go from that to living your very best life. We have to clear before we can create. So we have to clear the story to create the life. So many people will come to me and say, I am so sick of this. I want a different story. And I'll tell them, then you have to stop telling the old one. Absolutely. Start phase one. And we have to clear the cycles to create the confidence. After failed marriages or businesses or whatever, we often don't trust ourselves, especially at this time in life when we go, how did I end up here now? Or this is not what I envisioned. And there's all of these cycles and all of these things that this keeps happening. So this must mean this. So we got to clear the cycles so we can actually create the confidence so that you can actually trust yourself. And we have to clear the patterns to create the partnerships. We want aligned, genuine, connected partnerships, romantically, personally, professionally, with our kids, with our families. But when you bring all the old patterns and all the old unconscious wiring, you don't get those partnerships. You just get more of the same, which is more of what you don't want because that's what you're focusing on.
And that's what you're used to. And that's what you're focusing on. And you attract that, right?
And then we have to clear the loss to create the love. So we do that using the quantum pattern protocol, which is 3 phases: clear, create, and claim. And inside of those 3 phases are 3 steps. So it's a process from start to finish. But to answer your question, it's definitely not group work. But the beautiful thing about this work is that it doesn't take months and years. It takes weeks.
Really?
I've been completely transformed.
It takes weeks to get rid of a mindset that has been following you around for 40 to 50 years? Wow, that's pretty impressive. Is it electroshock therapy?
They're not going to hypnotize you, and you're not going to have to hang upside down and have sage. None of that.
Okay.
No. But this is why it's critically important to understand the difference between your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. And this is where the neurosomatic and the neuroscience comes in. So if you think about everything from the neck up is our conscious mind. It is everything we know, makes us who we are. It's our goal setter. We use it all day long. It's 10%, which means everything from the neck down, the other 90% of our body, and the other 90% of our mind is the unconscious mind. So if the conscious is our goal setter, the unconscious is the goal getter. It's what actually makes things happen. It's the operating system. And most importantly, in my opinion, and we alluded to this earlier, it is the literal library of everything you've ever experienced in your entire life, held at a cellular level. So we think of memory being in the brain, and of course it lives in the circuitry, but we know now from science that memory is cellular. So back to our conversation of every time you go back to a thing that caused you pain or anger, it reactivates that at a cellular level, and your body experiences as though it's happening again over and over. And that reinforces those neural pathways specifically. And that's what keeps happening and showing up over and over. So when we think about how powerful our thoughts are, because every day we think between 65,000 and 85,000 thoughts every single day. And 90% of those thoughts are recycled. They're the same thoughts we thought yesterday and the day before and the week before, and in the middle of the night when it's 3:33 and you're going through all the what ifs, and then you're counting, if I fell asleep right now, I can still get 2 hours of sleep. And the problem there is that 75% of those thoughts are negative. But here's the thing. I get a lot of pushback on that because the people that I work with are amazing and brilliant. And they're like, oh no, I am so good on mindset. I have done all my mindset work. But what you don't realize is that the unconscious mind doesn't hear the qualifying don'ts. So when you're saying, you're declaring, and it feels like you're clear, I don't ever want to be in a relationship again where I don't feel safe. I don't ever want to be in a relationship again where I don't feel valued and adored. I don't want to be in this freaking debt. I don't want to have this extra weight on my body that I do all the right things and it won't come off. I don't want to be in this job that I hate. Again, the unconscious mind in the universe doesn't hear the qualifier. All it knows is what you're focused on. And it's why people will come to me and say, I keep marrying the same person. over and over. I keep dating the same person. I keep finding myself in the same position every company I go to. Isn't that amazing that my boss is always evil? And what people don't realize is, yes, and that will continue to be true until we can rewire what you're focused on.
So you're saying the body doesn't hear the word don't or I will not thing. So it just skips over that and here's abusive relationship. It says, okay, we'll look for an abusive relationship.
That's right. Because the reticular activating system in our brain that is the laser focused little bouncer that's looking for the things that we give it instructions to find. That's exactly right. Of course, every man that you meet or every woman that you meet is a narcissist and a liar and a cheater because that's what you're training your brain to look for. I always laugh because my daughter and I joke about this all the time, but everywhere we go, no matter what, there's always a parking spot in front because that's part of being a magnet for miracles is I've declared that. And how many people that I see that are like in that, of course it's raining and there's no parking spots and there never is. And I go to the store and they give me the wrong thing and the eyeglass person doesn't know what they're doing. And it gets to a point where it's almost comical because I'm like, you're literally writing your script every single time you say those things into existence because it's like jumping in your car and putting in the nav system or the Google Maps of the address to where you're going. It's going to take you there. So every time you're saying those things, you're giving your brain, the nav system, the directions to go there. And so as a person and in my business, my core values are love, generosity, impact, belief in what's possible, and being a magnet for miracles. And that is my favorite thing to teach people because again, in 72 hours, I can actually rewire your thought process and switch that so that your physical world starts to show up very differently. And all of a sudden, there's parking spots. And people that you meet are kind and loving.
Is that 72 hours like in-person, one-on-one immersive counseling kind of thing so that you...
It's actually it's part of the work that I do. And we do it really early on because let's get rid of that first. But we walk through it. We create an away wall and a toward wall. And we talk about frequency and how to actually do this over the course of 72 hours. And then you go do it and you're checking in with me. All you need is a couple pieces of paper and a rubber band. So there's no fancy equipment required. You don't need to come fly to California and be with me. And I promise you, if you play at 100% or 1,000%, in 3 days, you will be different.
Is the rubber band to snap you when you find yourself thinking wrong things? Oh, that's cool.
You need a pattern interrupt, and then you have to replace it. And the point of this work is not that all of a sudden we're going to give you a lobotomy and you're not going to have negative thoughts or negative emotion. The point is not sitting in it because hold a thought for 17 seconds with emotion, it either creates new or reinforces a neural pathway. So when you're sitting in the yuck for hours or the whole day, you're just setting yourself up. So the point is to not have those experiences and not be this toxic positivity nonsense. The point is, over the course of those 72 hours, you're going to start, maybe the first day you don't even snap it because you're so used to living like this and operating like this, you don't even notice it. And then the next day, it might be a few hours in of you feeling anxious or down or just mad or whatever. And then you're like, oh, what was I thinking about? I promise you it was something on that away wall list, which is everything you don't want. And then towards the end of that 72 hours, you find yourself like it happens and then you snap and you're like, oh, it was only a few minutes. And then ultimately you want to get to where it's seconds. Like I will say something or think something and I will feel it in my in my gut. And I'll be like, and I do a silly thing. This is just me. This is not part of what I say to my clients that you need to do, but I'm like, okay, delete from the universe. And then I replace it because I can actually feel it in my body. And I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I meant.
That's fascinating. It reminds me of a story I read a couple of years ago where 3 minutes of news first thing in the morning can alter your mood into having a bad day just because of that input for 3 minutes.
It's so true. So what we listen to, what we watch, the lyrics to the songs that we choose to, and again, there's no such thing as perfection. Let's go 80-20. I still love to watch Dateline and true crime. And so I balance that with other things. It's not about perfection, but it is about awareness and getting really intentional with what you're consuming.
That's a very good point. Do you work with men and women or primarily women?
Primarily women. Now, I will say, and for a long time I said, I only work with women. And the reason is that the few times when I tried it and it turned inappropriate very quickly, and I'm like, it's just a waste of my time and energy and resources. But as I've gone through these years, there are men that everyone can benefit from this work. And I think it's so important that men get to experience this as well. So I'm very selective. Obviously, there's a deep conversation that has to happen, but I do work with men, but it's a definitely case-by-case situation.
That's fair enough. Now,
Yeah.
I understand you've been focusing on high achievement women. Is that correct? What's the difference between high achievement, high hustle, and high alignment?
I think that there's a thing with high-achieving women, and again, that is not tied to a corporate title. You can be stay-at-home mom and the CEO of your house and be high-achieving. So this isn't, high-achieving doesn't equal you're a CEO at a company, but it's more of like how you're wired and how you're driven. And a lot of high-achieving women find themselves with this life that's great. They built the career. That's amazing. They have kids. They have friends. They're not laying on the floor in crisis, but this one area they can't get right. They're horrific at relationships because they treat it like the next job or the next position. And it's not about, and the reason is because that ambition, it's about doing more. I'm going to do more. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be the best. That's not what we're doing. And so to be able to like give people that permission. And again, when we look at the process and we're clearing, but before we clear anything, the first thing we have to do is get crystal clear. And this is what I find. Why most of my clients, or most women or men in general, never actually get what they want in life because they don't have that level of clarity and specificity because they're going 1,000 miles an hour and they're like, of course I know what I want. I want this and I want this. But so it's kind of if we went to a restaurant together and we sat down and the server came and took our order and I said, we would like a beverage, some protein of some kind, a side, and a salad. Thank you. And they're like, and they bring us an iced tea and a pork chop and some glazed carrots and a Caesar salad. And we got precisely what we asked for, exactly what we ordered. But what I wanted was a glass of Chardonnay and a piece of salmon and some roasted asparagus and an arugula salad with goat cheese and fresh figs. Thank you very much. Do you see the difference?
Because you weren't specific in making your intention or desire known.
And most of the time, unconsciously, that's how people are going through their life. They're asking for what they want, but they're not clear. So we do an exercise where if we first start it, I call it the Clarity Codex menu, but we do a values elicitation and get really clear on who you are and what your values are. And then we do a values elicitation around whatever we're discussing. Love and relationships, career, health, life in general, doesn't matter. And then we order those values. And then we do a non-negotiables list and a desires list. And the non-negotiables list is non-negotiable. This is not, oh, maybe I can let it slide this one time, or maybe it's okay that he lives 50 miles away and I said it had to be 20. And because you start going, what if this is it? What if this is it? And the desires are all of the magic wand fairy dust stuff. Like, yes, he has to be taller than me. Yes, I would really like it though so non-negotiable, he has to be taller than me. But my desire is it'd be great if he was 6'2" or higher. Or a desire would be, I come home, like I've been doing something and feel a long day and there's a bath and a glass of wine waiting for me. And people have a really hard time. And I'm like, okay, here's what I need you to do. I need you to spend the weekend. I want you to go find a great romance novel, watch a couple great fun rom-coms. And when you see something or you read something and you're like, oh, I wish somebody would do that for me. Put it on your desires. So we create this menu, which does a couple of things. Number one, gets you crystal clear. Number two, it takes away the fear of not being able to trust our own decisions. That whole, I thought I had it and look how that turned out. Mm-hmm. Because in 60 seconds, you can take anybody that's presenting themselves in your life, whether it's a romantic relationship, a business partner, even family members, we're honest, and basically run them through that codex. If the values don't line up, and if there's anything on that non-negotiables list or not on it, depending on the context, it's a clean no. It's a clean no. And they're not wasting time and energy on this back and forth, because when we're making values-driven decisions, we can make a clean yes or a clean no decision, and we don't get caught in the middle and the maybe and the devil, which is where all the friction and noise and decision fatigue lives. And then when we're there and we don't have the clarity and we don't trust ourselves and we don't have a thing to be able to do this, we do one of two things. We make a decision out of fear, or we make no decision at all. And we just stay paralyzed, stay in the stuff.
I would say that people also make decisions out of obligation. One of my biggest problems is the ability to say no. I want to be a people pleaser. So when people ask me to do things, I will always say yes. Even though it puts me in a bad position, it increases my workload. It's not something I really desire to do. It doesn't fulfill me, but because they want me to do it and I want to please them, I'll say yes.
Oh, I would love to do a boundary session with you.
Exactly. But that's what we need, is those kind of boundaries to prevent us from getting in those same situations that have kept us stuck in the past. Because we've said yes to things that we don't really want or that aren't good for us, we're going to find ourselves in a rapidly repeating circle. And just
it's like never ending.
Exactly.
I think it's really important to, when we're talking about things and everyone's listening to this going, yeah, that's easier said than done. Of course, I know I need boundaries. So what I would share with you in this specific space, and I'm happy to send this to you, I'm going to send this to you, but I have a whole thing around that, like how you actually create and hold a boundary, and the importance of it being very short, not done in anger, so you don't say the boundary when and then there's a consequence. But then the second part of that is the ability to say no. And then I have you ask yourself these questions. Am I saying yes because I'm afraid they're going to be disappointed or mad or upset? Then it's a no. Am I saying yes because I think, oh my gosh, if I don't, they won't like me, or if I do, they'll like me even more, and then it's a no. If I'm doing this because my heart and soul say, absolutely, that's the only yes you say yes to.
One of the gurus that I follow, Darren Hardy, says that when he's presented with these kind of options, it's either a hell yes or a definite no. And that's it. And it sounds like you're advocating for the same thing.
Yes. Now, one of my mentors and strategists, so I used to say that too in my work. It's either a hell yes or a hell no. And what's interesting, though, is a hell yes, there's like passion. That doesn't mean it's a clean yes. We've all made hell yes decisions that for different things.
You got me there, yes.
The difference between a hell yes and a clean yes is significant. But a clean yes can be a hell yes, for sure. But there is a distinction. There is actually being able to make clean yes decisions that are values-driven and not based on passion in the moment and spontaneity and impulsivity, which I have all of those.
That's a great input, a great piece of advice. With your clear to create method, I can understand clear means clearing the old story so that you can have room for the new one, and then you're creating the new story. What does claim involve?
Yeah. So when we clear, we figure out what's going on, where you are, what you want. We do a dysfunction detox. And when we do that, we use quantum time release, which is about a 3-hour session, completely unconscious process. You're not unconscious, but we're tapping into that other 90%. And again, clearing decades, 40, 50, 60 years of the energetic weight of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, and all those limiting beliefs. So if you think about each one of those emotions has its own ribbon. And every time throughout your life that you have an experience with that emotion, a ribbon goes on that marble. So today when something happens that makes you angry or sad or ashamed, it's barely about what's happened today. It's the 50 years of marbles. And that's what we get to clear in quantum time release without going back into any conscious memory of any painful thing. We're not going back to when you were 5 and you got put in the corner in kindergarten. No, it's irrelevant. So that's the whole dysfunction detox, where we actually get to get rid of all of that. And now you have room for what's meant for you. So now we can actually figure out, who are you now? Aside from the noise and the story and the conditioning and all the stuff, who are you? And then we get to step into create, right? And if we're going to blow out all of the strategy and neurology and ways of thinking, we better replace it. Because that's why people say, I've been in therapy for years. And then this thing happened. And rather than staying there, I just went right back to my old ways of being and my old ways of thinking. It's why people go back to all those old things, because most of the work in the world like this, right? Whatever you want to call it, therapy or coaching or neuroscience or anything that's a help resolution, is really focused on awareness and clarity, which is good. It's a foundation for any kind of growth or change. But again, if you blow all of that stuff out, you better replace it with something else, because the unconscious mind can't fill in a blank. So it's in the create phase where we're actually going to replace the neurology, the strategy, the behaviors, and anchor that in and reverse engineer those goals and install them on your timeline, so that we talked earlier about the reticular activating system. The brain doesn't know the difference between something that's actually happened and something that you visualize with all the emotion for 17 seconds. So your brain actually gets to experience whatever this goal is, the achievement of it. And the way that we do that is I'll ask you, what has to happen in the second before you've achieved it? How do you know you're there? So if your goal was by December 31st, 2025 or sooner, I'm celebrating planning a trip to Italy or booking a trip to Italy, for instance. And I'd say, what has to happen before you could pick up the phone and call me and say, my trip is booked? I got an email with my flight confirmation and the villa is all set. Okay, great. So that's the moment we install on your timeline. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Are you cheering? Are you guys popping champagne? You got to feel it with all this. Okay. So then to finally answer your question, we move into claim. And claim is where we own it and we integrate it and we embody it. Claim is where we stop needing external permission. Claim is where we finally get to actually trust ourselves again and fall in love with ourselves and confidently hold boundaries and expertly communicate your needs and really deepen the richness in every single one of your relationships. And then you integrate that into your decisions, your relationships, your planning. And then you embody that and you get to just lead and love it from this new frequency in a way that you just get to magnetize with grace.
Mm-hmm.
All of the performance and all of the pressure and all of the shoulds and all of the stuff, it's just gone.
That sounds really interesting. And It sounds like something a lot of people would like. I wonder, with high achievers, though, they seem to be very good at high achieving in certain areas and woefully negligent in others. So they might have high achieving careers and high achieving kids, and not a high achieving marriage. Do you know what I mean?
Relationships at all.
Good
They
point.
have a hard time maintaining friendships, any kind of relationships, because they're so afraid of being hurt that they're not genuine and authentic anyway. They're so focused on the other and the doing, and they have to keep doing, and they have to work more, and they have to be the best, and they're going to work on the weekend.
Yes.
And they don't know how to have relationships.
That's right.
Like at the core. They really don't, most of them.
So you will help them have high achieving benefits in every area of their life?
Yeah. And again, when I say high achieving, this isn't about making you a high achiever.
Right.
This is not like we're going to go do more. We're actually going to do less and you're going to have more.
This is fulfilling.
And because we're going to take away the stories and what's driving underneath that you're not enough or you're powerless or everyone leaves you, or if you're not the best, you're not going to be loved because when you were 7, you didn't get an A and your dad was so disappointed in you that you decided, oh, I have to be the best to get love. Or your auntie said to you, you talk too much, you're loud. And you go, oh, I need to make myself small and be quiet so people love me. Like literally 90% of who we are today, we picked up between 0 and...
It is amazing. Amazing how one person's comment can impact us for the rest of our lives. Exactly.
And in this work, we get to get rid of them without going back into the nonsense.
That's cool. Can women still have an impact while maintaining an attainable pace? It sounds, when you talk high achieving, I know it's not hustle and it's not busy work, etc. But it just conveys this idea that you're always going, always striving, etc. And that requires hustle and work to balance all the balls and keep the plates spinning and things like that. But it doesn't sound like maybe that's true.
Here's the truth. It doesn't have to be true. And when you get rid of the story and the stuff underneath that's running at an unconscious level of that, if you're not the best, you're not going to be loved or respected or seen or whatever. And when we can actually get rid of that and we can make decisions with intention and look at what do you really want? Is this what you really want? Fine, I'll support you in that. Or do you just do this because this is what you've always done and this is all you know and this is what you decided at 6 that you had to do? And what if there's another way? What if it doesn't have to be hard? What if you can have everything you want and you can stop the performance and the peacocking and the endless having to do more? What would that be like?
That would be incredible. I bet a bunch of people would like to feel that way, but are skeptical or uneasy about putting in the work to get there.
That's why I love the work that I do. So I don't know if you've ever done therapy, but I did therapy in my 20s and then in my 30s. And when you have to switch therapists or find a new one, I would say 75% of people won't do it because the thought of having to retell that freaking story is so overwhelming and you just don't do it. So then you don't get the help or you don't get the healing or you don't get the ability to release the old trauma and the old story because we don't want to have to go and it's just so much. It's so heavy. And that's why I say to people, you know what? This work doesn't have to be hard and it doesn't have to be painful. Now, there's going to be moments of emotion and of course, but what happens, we'll talk about a few things for specific reasons, like when we talk about the law of cycles, to see the patterns every 7 years in your life, but we're not going back into the story and we're not going to sit and you don't need to tell me all the things that happen in your marriage. We don't need it.
Water under the bridge.
Accomplish what we want to.
So is this a short-term program or does this require years of work?
Oh yeah, you have to be with me at least 10 years. I'm just kidding. So there's a few ways to work together. The intensive is literally 8 sessions and you can do that in 8 weeks. But I will tell you with all transparency, it has never happened in 8 weeks or 8 sessions. The reason is I will have something planned for us and you're going to come to our call and it's going to be clear to me that you need something else. So we're going to set aside my plan and we're going to take care of you, whatever that is. And so this isn't a rigid thing. There are no modules. The framework is the work, right? And how we move through that is slightly different for every single person because we're all different. So that is the start of the work. And then for people that want to be held in a bigger way and continue the work, then we have the mastery experience, which means that we're together then for the remainder of whatever the 12-month period of time. So let's say we started your intensive and because you went on vacation, you did some things, let's say it took 3 months to get through those sessions instead of 2. Then we would have 9 months remaining where for the rest of those 9 months, then we're in claim together and we are co-creating every area of your life together in real time. A couple of hours a month, you can use it any way you want. That way, it's when you think about a rocket ship, sending a rocket out into space is easy. It's the re-entry that's hard. That's where the danger is. And so you do this work and you're clearing and you're creating and you're fully set up to go and claim, but sometimes things start coming at you and life happens and you're like, I don't know. What am I? So it's like we get to stay in the relationship together for the rest of the year. And so as things come up and we've built businesses in that time, we've created relationships that turn into marriage in that time, we've mended families and children in that time, we've lost weight and changed our body. A lot of times midlife practitioners will send me women that they are working with who are in perimenopause or menopause, whatever, and they can't lose this weight. But because women's nervous systems are designed different than men, if our nervous system, even at an unconscious level, doesn't feel safe, you can't release the weight. So all of that old stuff. So they will send them to me, we'll do a QTR and release it all. And then all of a sudden, their whole body changes. So and then I also offer, because I am a little bit bougie, I also offer a VIP experience for somebody who wants to come do intensive work together, but in a very luxurious, pampering way. So we'd spend 2 nights and 3 days together somewhere amazing. And we're going to do a lot of this work in those 3 days, but we're going to mix in whatever it is for you. So I love touch. So I would want a massage every day or a sun bath. And if you love the beach, we'll be at the beach. If you want to be in the mountains, we'll be at the mountains. But so Those are really the three ways. And then I have other things. Sometimes people just want a strategy session to get some clarity for a couple of hours, and that's available too.
Okay. I'm assuming there's a cost to all of this. Is that on your website?
No.
No. Okay. So people would have to contact you to determine exactly what they would need or what would be most beneficial for them, and then you'd explain the program.
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you written a book?
It's coming.
Okay.
I literally just started the process, and we are in our mastermind, our Thought Leadership Collective. We're literally going through like the whole book process, because Jen put out her book this year earlier called Unicorn Team, and she learned a lot of lessons about publishing and all of the stuff they don't tell you. And she spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. So really writing that book proposal becomes your business plan. But her book proposal is 80 pages. And
wow.
It's a big deal if you're going to do it in a traditional or hybrid publishing. If I was self-pub, I could have a book out in 30 days.
Right. Or by Monday, if you really want to.
Sure. Yeah, by Monday, exactly. Yeah.
Super. Where can people get more information about your program?
Yeah.
Or how can they follow
website,
you?
Absolutely. RianaMalia.com. Also Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube at Riana Malia. And then I would like to leave everybody with a gift. So I have created a diagnostic assessment called the ELLI, which stands for the Extraordinary Love Index. And that answers the question of what's standing between you and extraordinary love. And that could be romantic love. It could be self-love. Doesn't matter. But it's a 40-question assessment. So it's not the what Disney character are you? And so give yourself a good 10, 15 minutes so you can actually thoughtfully answer the questions. And then I'm going to send you a 28-page report, personalized for you, looking at all 9 key areas that we went through. And it's going to tell you like, okay, based on your score, like this was your lowest score. Here's what you might be experiencing in your life. Here's the cost of staying there. Here's what you can do right now to start moving yourself out of that. It is insight you've never had. It will change your life. Every human on the planet should take the ELLI. So if you go to the website, it'll pop up. I'd love for you to take it. I get the notifications, and so I actually review every single person's results. It's fascinating. And everything else is there. Every way you could possibly want to reach me for speaking, for podcasts, for private work, it's all there.
Super. I might have to do that. It just sounds intriguing to learn more insight into what's going on with you. So thank you again for sharing your story. It's inspirational, and I think a lot of people will find advantages to jumping into a program like this to find out what has kept them stuck in the same things and the repeated patterns over and over again for most of their lives. And they'll find hope in knowing that it can change. So thank you again for sharing that.
My pleasure.
Riana Malia's life today is proof that healing can happen faster than most people believe. By clearing out old emotional weight, creating new thought patterns, and claiming a new identity, she reshaped her relationships. She also restored her confidence and opened the door to the love she once believed would never come. Riana's work demonstrates that people over 50 can absolutely transform their inner world, break free from decades-old cycles, and walk into the next chapter with renewed confidence, joy, and purpose. If you'd like to learn more about Riana and explore her programs, you can connect with her at rianamalia.com. From there, you can follow her on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also take her Extraordinary Love Index assessment, which provides personalized insight into what may be standing between you and the love or life you desire. That's all for this week's show. If you'd like to start living a more meaningful life, I encourage you to download our free guide to finding purpose, which is available at www.forwardfrom50.com. We'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like this show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.